Hello primary 5 students, how are you? Welcome in your science class with me, Dr. Shaimaa Hamdy Kassm, and your channel, the Big Sister channel. As now, we will study lesson 1 from concept 3, unit 1. Here, concept 3, it will talk about the changes in the food webs. As we learned in concept 2 that all living organisms need food and energy to survive and to grow. We know that the plants are producer in the ecosystem that absorb sunlight energy and make its own food, while animals, which called consumers, and animals can't make their own food. They can't get the energy directly from the sunlight as the plants do. Also, we know that the animals get energy and food by eating, even plants or animals or both of them. And we know the energy flow as the energy flow from the producers to the consumers. And we studied two models, food chain and food web. Now we will study what will happen to the food web if there is a change. And this change may be in the environmental changes as the climate change, or this change happens by the human activities. So now we will have an example. As you see here, this is a climate change, and we will see how the climate changes affect the food web. As you see here, there is a lake, okay, and we want to imagine what will happen if there is a climate change, if the temperature rises or increases. So what will happen to this lake? What do you think? Yes, the water is evaporated due to the hot sun, and the ground is dried due to the drought condition. And of course, this will affect the food web, will affect the living organisms that live and survive in this ecosystem. Now we will see the changes that caused by the human activities, as throwing plastic garbage in the sea, an ocean or river, in any marine ecosystem will affect the food web in this ecosystem. Those was two examples for how the climate change and human activities can change the food web. So now we have question. What happens to the food web if an organism or the environment changes in the ecosystem? As we know that the ecosystem provides living organisms by food, shelter, water, okay? So if there is a change in the ecosystem, so the ecosystem can't provide the living organisms with resources like food, shelter, water, okay? So here we have an example. Here, this is a food web that we have green plant, and it is eaten by mouse or rabbit or goat, and those are the primary consumers, and those primary consumers may be eaten by the snake, owl, wild cat, jackal, okay, and so on. Imagine in this food web that the plant, which are the producers, disappeared from the ecosystem. So this is a change in the ecosystem. What will happen to the food web? Yes, if plants producers disappeared from the ecosystem, so the consumers need to move to another place, search for food, or they will die. Especially the primary consumers, they will not find food. So they will move to another ecosystem or they will die, and also then the secondary consumers will be affected by this change, okay, and so on. Here we will imagine that there is another change in the ecosystem, as in this food web, one of the species of consumers, the number of these species increases, okay, as here imagine that the rabbits number increase in this ecosystem. So what will happen to the food web? Yes, the resources of food and shelter may disappear, so they will die. And why the resources of food and shelter may disappear? Because now there is an increase in the number of one species. So this increase will cause that these species consume more, okay, more plants, as the rabbit eats plants. So when it consumes more from the resources, the food here, the plants, so they may affect the food web, as after a while there is no enough plants for the rabbits and other consumers, okay. From here we can say that the change in an organism or in the ecosystem will affect the other species in the food web. So now we will start studying activity 2, as now we will talk about some human activities that affect the marine habitat, okay. Habitat means any water body like river, sea, ocean. So what are the human activities that the human do that affects the marine habitats, like water pollution, throwing plastics and wastes in the water, and also overfishing, as you see here. What the meaning of overfishing? Yes, to catch more and more fish, okay, overfishing more than normal. So this will affect the food web, of course. As you see here, this is a big amount of fish that the human catch from the sea. So this will affect the food web in the marine habitat, okay. And here we will take an example for protection of the marine environment in Plow Island. Plow Island, this is an island, okay, and we know, as you see here, that the island is surrounded by the ocean or sea from all directions. So if the people that live in this island don't control the human activities like the water pollution or overfishing, so this will affect the marine environment there. So here, anything that happens on land will affect the marine environment because it is island that's surrounded by the water from all directions. So here, the people in Plow use different conservation programs. Conservation. And conservation is a noun that comes from the verb conserve, and conserve to protect or to keep, okay? So here, those are programs to protect the marine environment and its resources, food and shelter, okay? And this is by creating a well-designed protected marine environment. They create a well-designed protected marine environment program, okay? And they have rules that people in Plow control the human activities on land to keep the marine environment from pollution. This is by avoid throwing plastic wastes into the ocean, And also the fishermen must not overfish the coral reefs to conserve the marine environment. Coral reefs, as you see here, this is all environment or habitat that provide the living organisms in the marine ecosystem with food and shelter. As you see here, this is the coral reefs. So people employ control overfish of the coral reefs, okay, to conserve the marine environment, and also they control the human activities as water pollution, throwing plastics in the marine environment. So they conserve the marine environment. They keep the marine environment healthy. Okay. Here we reach to activity 3. Okay. As from the examples, we know that the relationship between all the components of the ecosystem, living organisms and water, air, habitat, play an important role in keeping the ecosystem balanced. So the ecosystem must be balanced, okay? So the food web will be unchanged and balanced also, as each species will find its food and shelter in the ecosystem. So this will be good for the food web. And this is because when the ecosystems change, the food webs also change according to this changing that happens in the ecosystems. Okay, so now we have a game to play. So be ready. Here we have 4 cars: improved, harmed, destroyed, and harmed again. Okay, so we have 4 cars. And here we have questions, and we will answer by using 1 card to each situation. As here, first situation, what would happen if there is a gentle rain in the desert? So the desert ecosystem will be changed, because we know that the desert have few amount of water. So if there is a gentle rain, a moderate rain, that means that the rain is not heavy. So what will happen to the desert ecosystem? It may improve, or it may be harmed, okay, or it may be destroyed, or what? Yes, gentle rain, so it may improve the desert ecosystem. So here the answer will be, we will use the card improved. So the answer will be that desert ecosystem may be improved. Okay, so well done. And why the ecosystem in the desert will be improved if there is gentle rain? Because the rainwater will feed the plants, which are the producers, and this will feed the organisms, living organisms. So this is the reason. Here we have another situation. What would happen if there is a heavy rain in the desert? So now it's heavy rain. Okay. So the desert ecosystem may be, we would choose harmed or destroyed. Yes, the desert ecosystem may be harmed by this heavy rain. And why? As you see here, because heavy rain may cause flooding. Okay, so this will harm some living organisms in the desert. Okay, here we have another situation. What would happen if there is a drought and all the grass died? So drought conditions, so there is no water and the grass died. The food web in this ecosystem may be, yes, here we will choose, as you see here, there is no grass, so the food web here may be destroyed. Yes, so here we would choose destroyed. And why? Because the organisms will die as the grass died, because they there is no grass, so the living organisms that feed on the grass will die also. Here we have the last card, which is harmed. So, the top predator. Yes, top predators are the predators exist in the top of the food chain. And those like lion, crocodile, tiger, sharks, all of these are top predators. So here we have the last situation. What would happen if there are many top predators in the ecosystem? There are many tigers or lions in this ecosystem. So what will happen? Yes, the other organisms in the food chain may be harmed. And why? Because the top predator will eat all the organisms. So here the other organisms in the food chain may be harmed, okay? Because there is a large number of top predator, and top predators will eat the other living organisms. So here, well done, we finished this game, and we realized that when a change happens in the ecosystem, this for sure will affect the food web, even by improving the food web or destroying the food web or harm the food web. We will see an example for a food web in the marine ecosystem. So we know that the food web means it is a model, shows several interconnected food chains. Okay, so here we have this food web as it starts with producer, and the producer here is the algae. So don't forget that the algae is the producer in the marine ecosystem. So they make their own food. Okay, and then algae can be eaten by zooplankton or clam or urchin. Okay, so those are the primary consumers: urchin, zooplankton, clam. Okay, and then the urchin may be eaten by the bird fish, and the zooplankton may be eaten by the coral, and clam may be eaten by the starfish. So those, the parrotfish, the coral, the starfish, are secondary consumers because they eat the primary consumers. And then coral, okay, can be eaten by the butterfly fish or by triggerfish or parrotfish. Okay, and then we have the parrotfish and the triggerfish and the butterfly and the starfish. All of these can be eaten by the shark. So the shark here is the top predator. We can summarize what happens in the ecosystem. The sun produces energy that the plants take, or if we are talking about the marine environment, so the algae, okay, take this energy and transfer it to consumers, that when they die, even the producers or consumers, here the decomposers break them down into nutrients that can be returned back to the ecosystem, and so on. Here we have question that I hope you answer it. It is very easy. Here we have a food web, and we have words that we will choose from them to fill the blank, okay, in the statements or sentences below the food web model. So with this, we finished our lesson. So don't forget to subscribe, like, and share my channel. See you next video, inshallah. Goodbye.